The beauty about hospitality is that you're going to have some shit nights. So I used to cook on the pans every night. All proteins, all vegetables would go from my hand. That was good at that time, but I was like, what's the next step for me? What's my progression? What's all the people who work with me? What's their progression? And I didn't want to do it. I was just like, I don't want to let go of these pans.
I think a lot of creatives feel like their creativity is linked to their tools. And if they let go of the tools, there's nowhere for the creativity to go.
No one's going to do it better than me. But you know what? There's a lot of people who can do it better. If I had Siddhartha today, it would be good, but I would still be cooking that piece of meat.
On today's show, I'm speaking with award-winning chef and restaurateur Sid Sahrawat to see what we can learn from the world of fine dining, and specifically what it takes to move past raw talent and intuition and into a new level of mastery, one that involves teamwork, experimentation, iteration, and discipline. My name is Ben, and this is Made Better Wedding Films.
It takes a lot of time and effort and passion to come up with a balanced menu. It doesn't happen just like, oh, let's just put this on or that on. Sometimes we do say, okay, why don't we try this with this? But there is a lot of planning. There's a lot of like, okay, what if we cook the pork belly at this temperature, say 82 degrees for 12 hours, or how is it going to be different if it was 80 degrees for 10 hours? And that's where it changes the way it eats and the way the menu is developed. It's like you can cook a piece of duck breast from the fridge straight in the pan, it'll be fine. But if it's dry aged for 3 weeks, it's a complete different product. Or same with beef, like if you open a packet of beef sirloin and just cook it, it's not gonna caramelize the same as something that's been dry aged for say 300 days, or 300 days is probably the most excessive.
Yeah.
But
yeah, you sort of unlock a whole bunch of other new stuff that you sort of didn't have access to. Have you watched, I assume you probably have, MasterChef Australia? I kind of liken it to that in the sense that like you start off seeing these home cooks, and amazing home cooks, like well above the average level of what everyone else would expect to be able to, do in a kitchen. But then every now and again they get the pro chef to come in, and it's like, oh no, okay, that's a whole nother level of being able to like look at these. And because that's the same scenario of like rocking up to a kitchen and kind of doing something on the fly, but just the level of thinking and creativity from someone who has gone through that process of slowing down and iterating and experimenting. That's kind of where I feel like we're stuck in, like, as a lot of wedding filmmakers, like stuck in that kind of like home cook kind of world where it's like we're well above average, and anything we put up is like still blowing people's minds and people are stoked with, and our clients are really happy. But there's this kind of ceiling that I think a lot of us sort of hit where we're not unlocking some of those, things that we can do with our ingredients, that if you don't stop and actually slow down and experiment and iterate, we sort of, we hit that kind of ceiling of what we're able to do.
I guess a lot of it comes down to your understanding of ingredients and combinations as well. Because it doesn't mean like a home cook. Like I've eaten a lot of dishes from a lot of friends who are not chefs, and they literally cook on the fly, and one of the best things you'll ever eat. Or even like, it doesn't have to be like home cooks or like family friends who just like love food, and it can actually give you more pleasure than eating at a fine dining restaurant. So there's no right or wrong. It's just different. Like it's just they have this plethora of different kind of techniques. Everything doesn't have to have that fine dining technique, but it's just cool to have that balance between the two.
Yeah, exactly. Because you can get that kind of raw, authentic kind of like love that gets put into something, and it just comes through, and it's amazing. I think the kind of creative perfectionist in us probably wants to, just go a little bit further sometimes. So we've established the playing field. On one side is a home cook's raw intuition, and on the other is a fine dining chef's refined experimentation and iteration. Where on that scale do you currently sit, and where do you want to get to? As someone who's interested in moving further towards the latter, I asked Sid how he approached the creation of the menu for his latest restaurant, Anise. To start to sort of dive into your brain, because you've just opened Anise, your fifth
Um,
Venture?
I guess four for
Because
now. So we got
yeah,
Cassia,
because you got French
Cole,
Cassia, Cole, French Cafe, and now Anise.
and Ace. Yeah,
Yeah,
we used to
yeah.
have
So
Siddharth, but we sold that just
yes,
before
that's right.
COVID or during
Yeah,
COVID. Yeah.
yeah. So you've done this a few times. So maybe do you want to walk us through the experience of what Anise was like in terms of like how do you go about starting building a menu from scratch? What's the process of you just like day one? Okay, what's Anise going to look like?
So I'm not too sure if you know, but Anise was a restaurant I worked in around 2000, 2000 to 2001.
Mm-hmm.
And I had never cooked Thai food before in my life. So when I moved to Wellington, I was looking for different positions and things, and they were looking for a sous chef there. And it was one of the most phenomenal kind of roles I've done till today because I learned the complexity of Thai cuisine and the flavors and how they put it together. So when we were like, okay, well, I think we need to refresh the French cafe a little bit, and this kind of where it is. And I said, well, I think I really want to do something, more Asian. Like Thai would be the most influential in that Asian, but then still have a bit of fun with Singapore or China or Japan. And so when I started doing the menu for that, the first thing is you've got to find the balance. So you start writing with core ideas where you've got to have a vegetarian dish, you've got to have a seafood dish, you've got to, so entrees, you don't want to have cooked fish, you want to have a raw fish. And so that, or you want to have snacks to start. So once you have that sort of first kind of core idea, then you start developing the menu.
Do you ever question, especially in those early days of like figuring out how it's going to look? Do you ever question the whole like, oh, we have to have this kind of,
No,
mentality?
I think we don't
Yeah,
confine ourselves too much about
yeah,
we have to have this. It's really important as a chef or as a restaurant that you really showcase your own style.
hmm
And that's what makes any restaurant special in the world is where the chef is cooking what he thinks or what he really enjoys eating and wants the people to enjoy that kind of style of his food. And
hmm
it all, if it was just me saying, okay, I'm just going to do whatever I want, that's not going to work. The team has to be part of it. But, and the core idea has to come from the leader. And then you sort of say, okay, this is what I was thinking. Let's start elaborating on that. Let's start working. So Anis, it was a work in progress for about 3 months where me and Tommy kept working on the menu. A few things stayed till that actual day of opening, and a few things were just, completely in the trash bin and start again in terms of the idea development.
Start with a core idea, one that resonates authentically with you, and then develop a framework that best reflects it whilst covering all of the must-have elements. For Sid, that's making sure he's got a vegetarian option, a starter, a main. For us, it's making sure we're capturing the key moments the couple expects us to. But once you have that framework, that core theme, then begins the process of experimentation. What ideas can we throw at this theme that best reflect it? Some will work, some won't, but the key is to give yourself time to let the ideas settle and balance.
You have to have a very clear direction of the menu. So at Cassia, we can't have, a Japanese and Indian dish, together. We sometimes use some like soy sauce or something to get a bit more umami in Cassia, but that's just very subtle touches. But the menu will be all sort of modern Indian.
Mm-hmm.
And Anis is the same. It'll be all kind of Asian. And in different kind of, aspects of it and things. Coal is all tandoor based. So everything's about charcoal and wood fire. So even to the point that a dessert needs to come from the tandoor. So it's really telling people a story of the restaurant. They're just not coming to tick the box. They're coming to actually understand what they're eating and enjoying it. And French Cafe is the same. It's, we use the best New Zealand produce and then French techniques are part of it.
You can see for all Sid's restaurants, it's not simply a matter of making the best dishes that he can think of, but making sure every dish, every ingredient, every technique speaks to the core theme. It takes discipline, and some ideas might be amazing, but they don't have a home, and that's okay too. As Sid goes on to tell me, it's important to leave room for raw experimentation as well. Do you ever find yourself thinking of an idea that like doesn't have a home? And
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, and that's where we do this Gag and Out test kitchen every first Tuesday every month. And that's where we just sort of let loose a little bit. We're like, okay, let's try kingfish with a crab ice cream, or let's try cauliflower in dessert. And because people are ready to try something that they're not going to get every day. And initially we were all like laughing about the idea, but then, the pastry chef will be like, okay, I'm going to work on I'll come up with the flavor combinations first, run it past you, and then see what you think. And then if you're happy with that, then I'll actually execute that dish and see what you think. So that whole thing is really cool. And I'm usually a bit more of a freestyle chef where I'm like, oh, let's just put this together on the menu without trying it. Whereas my head chef Tommy at French Cafe, and he's very perfectionist. So he'll try that different kind of ratios of the ingredients on plates and be like, try, and I love that. So I think we work really well together in that kind of aspect, that there's no egos involved in the chefing kind of world. There is for some in a lot of places, but I believe that's why we work really well together, is because there's no right or wrong. Let's try it out, and if it works, it works. Otherwise, we'll try something else.
Yeah. I love that idea of experimentation and play and stuff. And because seen too, you've done a bit on Instagram and stuff. You're like, will it curry?
Does it curry?
Does it curry? Where you just like being kind of just like deliberately being silly and stuff.
Yeah.
And has there been times throughout like those kind of playful, silly, almost outlandish experimentations where something has surprised you and you go, oh no, this is actually a road we can go down, and we never expected to even try that?
Yeah, for sure. Like, for example, Tommy came up with this dish with kingfish that was lightly cured. And he said, oh, I want to try a kiwi fruit sorbet. And for me personally, I'm not a big fan of seafood and fruit together. And I was like, yeah, let's give it a go. And, he made a kiwi fruit and jalapeno sorbet and a few other garnishes with that. And I was just stunned. I'm like, how is this working? Shouldn't work. And it's the same with meats. Like with red meats, I don't like fruit. But it all depends on how you kind of execute those flavors together. That just really changes everything. Same with cassia, we were like, oh, should we try a dessert with chili? And on paper, it should not really work. But then if you just have that deft touch where you just kind of putting subtle elements here and there and understanding how you want to put it, how you want it to eat, really can change everything.
How important do you feel it is to kind of get out of your comfort zone like that as a creative?
In hospitality, it is so important to be out of our comfort zone. Otherwise, life just gets so boring. Because you do it day in, day out, relentlessly. You just, you've got to love the chefing part or the front of house, because it's just like, it's immense pressure. It's very, it takes a lot of time to create and be disciplined. It's very structured. So you've got to let loose a little bit.
Once you know the rules, what's safe, what works, it can be good to deliberately go against the grain. Be silly. Try something that on paper shouldn't work, because every now and again you might stumble upon something magic. I want to kind of sort of go from there and dive a little bit more into the kind of like customer experience and stuff. And so as a chef, I imagine you can kind of get like head in like in the food itself, but at the end of the day, people are coming to the restaurant and eating the food, and it's all about the experience, right? So like, how important is the holistic customer experience for you? And are you kind of thinking about that and thinking of ways to kind of, improve that?
Well, to be honest, I'm pretty lucky that I've got such amazing guys working with me in all the 4 restaurants that, what it really allows me to do is I'm almost like half chef and half front of house now. And that is really, I really enjoy that, because that gives me an opportunity to talk to the diners every day. And a lot of them are coming to see me or to experience the food I create with the teams, So for them to be able to talk to me directly, it's just kind of like a new thing that we really enjoy. Like, I want to say, like, I want to ask them every dish they like, oh, what do you think, Not to go too excessive as well, that it's all about the food. It's got to be an experience in its own, whether it's the music, the wine, the company, everything. But I really enjoy that you don't have to be stuck in the kitchen 24/7 to actually create amazing food. As long as you have the people with you, you can actually go out, do other things, because they all, they don't want to be micromanaged. They just want to create and, put in extra stuff, like their kind of input in making things better as well.
Two questions around that. What have you kind of learned in terms of moving more front of house and connecting with the patrons a bit more? Like, have you thought about things differently because of that? Has it sort of like changed how you think about things, like moving more out of the kitchen and moving more front of house?
Well, I mean, it's to the point that I might cook a dish, but then I take it out.
Yeah.
So I guess treating it like a little extension of a home, where, when you have friends over, you cook it and you serve it to them. And you explain a little bit about the story about where that dish has come or why we created that dish. And again, it has to be a really fine line that's not boring to them. It's not like, oh, here we go. He's going to give me a 2-minute or 5-minute story, because it's just boring. It's just, you can do it really quick, and it's just that they want to hear it from the actual visionary.
And I guess the other side of that question is, what have you learned about kind of relinquishing a bit of control to the people who are still in the kitchen, and just letting people, like you say, like spread their wings a bit and go on their own?
So I guess 2009 is when I opened Siddharth, and there was 3 front of house, 3 chefs, and we all worked 5 days a week, and I loved that. For 5 years, I did that day in, day out. But then I wanted to do something for our heritage, and that's where Cassia came into belonging. And I used to cook on the pans every night. All proteins, all vegetables would go from my hand, or from under my kind of supervision. And I just, that was good at that time. But I was like, okay, what's the next step for me? What's my progression? What's all the people who work with me? What's their progression? And that's where Cassia came into existence. And I didn't want to do it. I was just like, I don't want to let go of these pans. It's no one's going to do it better than me. But you know what? There's a lot of people who can do it better than me, because there is a lot of talent out there. And it's just, what amazes me is there's 20-year-olds who are cooking the best steaks, best meat, best pastry work in New Zealand, which is awesome, So Chan, my wife, was like, no, you're going to do it. You'll be fine. And for the first 6 months, it was really hard. But then we were fine. Everything was, all the meats, everything was fine at Siddharth.
Yeah.
And that's what I really enjoy, is that progression of individuals. Now, today we have, about, say, 70, 80 staff or team players who are just amazing people to watch. If I had Siddharth till today, it would be good, but I would still be cooking that piece of meat or piece of fish, or, quenelling a sorbet, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. But it kind of keeps your mind really open to enjoy the world and see different cuisines. We've got 4 different restaurants with different styles, which it just keeps everything so fluid.
Absolutely. This is the thing. I think a lot of creatives think, and I struggle to delegate, because I feel like a lot of creatives feel like their creativity is linked to their tools, because their tools are an outlet for their creativity. And if they let go of the tools, there's nowhere for the creativity to go.
Yeah.
But it's cool hearing people who do make that leap and do step away and realize, oh no, I can still be creative, and someone else can do, and someone else can do it like better than me, or
Yeah.
Because it can keep you trapped.
And a lot of the times, I'm quite happy to put my hand up, saying, "Oh, can you show me the size of how you've been portioning this?" Because I can go 4, 5, 6 days not doing a service in one restaurant or the other, and I don't want to do something that's being done differently in those few days, because sometimes we change dishes so often that you just forget a little bit here and there. Oh, what's the garnish for this? And they like kind of smile. And I'm like, come on, man, I haven't done service in a few days.
Yeah.
But it's that's the beauty about hospitality or working together.
Loosening your grip on the idea of doing everything yourself isn't an easy one for creatives, but inviting teamwork and collaboration opens you up to a whole new pathway of growth and development. But this is easier said than done. So what can we learn from the world of fine dining about the concept of building a team where everyone works in symphony?
I guess we're like almost like artists of of a music band. So, everyone's got their roles. So you start off with, kind of, if you want to call me the executive chef, probably that's my kind of role. And then we have a head chef in each restaurant who basically I will always talk to about the day to day, or we always have briefings once a week. We're like, okay, what are the major points we need to talk about? Let's talk about what's the feedback been on all the dishes over the week. What are the new dishes? Anything we want to change? Then the team, how's the team? Everyone happy? How they're working together, all that kind of stuff. And then there's this fleet of chefs who work together on different sections. And so they're responsible for the dishes coming out of this section. But then very important that we try to move them around. So again, they're not doing the same job every day. Because it just gets boring. It just gets like, I can't believe I have to do this pastry section again for the whole year.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, we do check with them like, okay, what's your passion? What do you feel like doing? What's the next thing you want to learn? Yeah. So that's what our head chef roles are, to kind of really nurture them, work with them, and also to check with them, okay, like this is good, but how do you think this could be improved? And that's where it just really changes, because they're like, I've got the freedom to say, okay, I can make this better. And honestly, you just see such big improvements and changes in the kitchen. Cleaning, discipline, everything's so important, because then, like, you live a life that's really clean and happy.
I love that. You know what? That goes against what I would have expected, where I would have expected everyone had their roles and they were sort of like perfectionists in just their role. The idea of everyone sort of switching and changing is really interesting.
It's like a relay race, right?
Yeah.
It's like four people running that 400-meter, sprint or whatever.
Yeah.
But one person couldn't do it. You need those 4 people to do it together.
Yeah, and you get different ideas thrown in the mix, and people aren't getting that kind of monotonous boredom of like just doing the same thing again and again and again. Cool, I love that. I love that idea.
It's every service is so different. It's like the day you think, today everything's going to be good. It just seems like it's going to be the best day. You walk into work, 3 people are sick, the dishwasher stopped working, you lose 20 bookings, you're like, what the fuck just happened? It's like, and then there's other days when you're like, oh my God, these, 2 people have COVID and I wonder if they're going to come because we have 100 people booked, or this thing is not working properly. And then suddenly everything's fixed and you're fine, you're ready to go. And
I guess the machine that is your kitchen has some resilience built in, because like everyone knows what everyone else is doing and can jump in and switch and be adaptive and
100%. Like just did service at Cathy a couple of days ago, and we had 80 people booked, and we did 150, 70 walk-ins within 1 hour. And I was doing the pass, and I'm like, I had about maybe 30 dockets away at the same time, and they're all like, we've got shows to go to, so we only have 45 minutes to dine. Like, sure. Yeah. And you know what? That is really fascinating to see that it always works out. It's pressure, it's high pressure, but it's 99% times it works out.
Yeah, and amazing. This is what I would love to dive in on this now, because this is a kind of a scenario that anyone who works in like a high pressure environment has had this scenario where like something unexpected happens, shit hits the fan, you have to think on the fly and go into action mode. So what's sort of going through your head in a scenario like that? 150 people, you're expecting 80 and you got a kind of motor. What kind of gear do you switch into, and what are some of the things you're doing to kind of, I guess, make that happen?
I guess adapt and delegate. That's the only way possible. So because every day there's a different scenario, and so you have to be like, okay, cool, this has just been thrown at us now. Like someone just walked in and they've come to Anise or Cassia, but they don't eat any onion, ginger, chili. Sure. There's those 3 ingredients in basically everything. So and you're like, okay, no problem. I'll make your menu quickly, or someone's coming to the restaurant and saying, we can't. There's only something we can only drink white wine. We can't drink it. So you're like, oh, cool. I'll sort that out. No problem. And or someone's got different needs in the dining rooms, um, and so you just got to delegate to the right people. Saying, okay, and now we've got how many people walk in. So let's just slow it down a little bit. Don't take any more walk-ins for half an hour. But let's prioritize what tables need to go to shows first. Let's get their dishes out. And the only way you can do is with a calm head. If you stress out, you're basically screwed. And that's the art of delegation that we always talk about in all the senior players, is that you can't lose your shit. You just got to drive the service. And that just makes everyone go like, oh, okay, cool. It's all under control. The beauty about hospitality is that you're going to have some shit nights because, if there's a traffic jam, what's going to happen? All the 60 bookings are going to go at the same time. And you're just going to, it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
And it's something that's not in anyone's control. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Sometimes 80% of the restaurant has crazy dietary requirements. And we all are like, oh my God. And because basically what that does is it takes the section waiters more time on the table to, understand the dietaries, because someone can be celiac, someone can be, I can't have any sugar, or I'm keto, or I've got a shellfish allergy. So imagine that if you're doing 80, 100 people a night, it's tricky, because it's like, you don't want to make anyone sick. You want them to have the best experience. You don't want them to feel that, it's a burden on what we're doing. And so when you get all these dockets in the kitchen, you're like, oh my God, everything just slows down, and, it's not going to be the best night, but that's life.
What's going through your head when you get yourself in, not when you get yourself in scenarios, but when you find yourself in scenarios where it would be easiest to just put up your hands and go, we can't do it. Just can't do it, walk away.
Well, I think
how do you push through and just like deliver anyway?
That's the thing for us, and the teams know that we can't say that. We have to find a way. There's like very few times being like, okay, actually we just can't cater for this dietary because we just don't have anything in the kitchen left to use. But no is not option. We have to find a way around everything. And that's what makes it more of a like an enjoyable profession, where you're like, okay, we can find ways. We don't have to say no.
By building a resilient team where everyone is supported and thriving, Sid is able to adapt to scenarios where it seems like everything is going wrong. Over the years, it seems he's come to embrace some of the uncertainty that the kitchen throws at him.
I guess for me, like if I look back at myself, say 10 years ago, what was changed in me is I try not to stress too much, and I guess COVID was a big factor in there, where everything in my life was so controlled, and then suddenly that control was taken away from me, and that really calmed me down. And from there on, I'm like, okay, we can do anything, and we as people, as hospitality professionals, we need to be as natural and emotional on the plate, on the tables, with the guests as we can. They're coming to enjoy a restaurant or life with us. We have to have our natural presence with them, whether it's in the kitchen or whether it's at our house. And we need to have this real fire in our belly to give them the best experience possible, and throw out as much emotion with them, so that they feel like, oh wow, this is just so much fun being here. But at the same time, you can still have whatever attention to detail, whether how it's being cooked or plated or served or explained. That's all fine, but everyone's got to have their own kind of natural presence. We have briefings every service in all restaurants, and for me, what's really fascinating is every briefing is slightly different. So everyone has a different way of running the restaurant and talking to the staff, talking about situation handling and all that. And I usually try and add a little bit here and there just to keep it more fluid and not make it like, oh, it's just another briefing, you know?
What are some of the things that would go through in that briefing, and what are some aspects that you would bring in to make it feel like, oh, not just another briefing?
So what's something we like to do is we like to talk about the night before. So where, we say, okay, these are the 2-3 things that went really well last night. These tables were just all over the, over the moon with the experience and everything. And this person did not like the chicken dish, and this person didn't like that wine with that course for the degustation. And then we quickly have a chat and say, okay, let's try this wine with this tonight, or let's try the chicken after this briefing, see what's, is there anything? And if it's only one feedback, we probably won't do much about it, or we'll tweak whatever we need to tweak. But then if that's a constant thing, then we're like, okay, this obviously needs to be looked at a lot more seriously. Then we talk about how we could make things better, whether it's service, food, personal life. If someone's not fine, we'll take them aside and say, oh, how you feeling? If someone's down, we're like, okay, take the night off, go look after yourself. Then we look at targets. Like, it's really important to know what the break even of a restaurant, how that can be reached. If, we've had a crap night, it's like, okay, can we get more covers in, or can we spread the time so we get more bookings, or it's too many bookings, let's get less bookings so we can give a better experience. So there's always you have Tuesday night when you have 10 people booked, so your wage cost would be 80%. But then you could have a Saturday night where you have 100 booked, and then you can't provide the same service. So it's like trying to find all the balance of these things. Then we talk about regular diners, or someone new coming in, or someone coming to celebrate their birthday or anniversary. So all those points are talked about in the briefing.
Wow, that's a lot. That's
a lot.
Again, it's a level beyond what I would have expected. Where I would have expected, rock in and go, okay, we've got this many people and these dietary requirements and yada yada yada. But I love hearing that the creative process and the learning and the iterating is still there on that daily basis.
Oh, for sure. And also it's quite easy to say, oh, that restaurant's so expensive, or that dish is so expensive. But chefs start really early. Front of house starts really early. To set up French cafe, it can take about 3 hours just to iron tablecloths and get it spick and span to open for 20 people. So all that, produce is not cheap anymore. Wines are not cheap. And just the upkeep of all that, it's a financial outlay for any restaurant that's just anywhere in the world, So it is, and that's where it's really important for the restaurant to provide that perfect experience as well, because for a diner, it's not cheap to go out, And it's like, if they're going to go out once a month, it has to be the X factor when they go out. So it's just finding that.
You're absolutely right.
Finding that balance of keeping everyone happy.
Hearing how Sid has built in a process for consistent iteration and growth on a daily basis was really inspiring for me. Putting ego aside and always asking what we can do different, what we can do better. I think we can all take something away from that.
I guess it's become a little bit easier because I guess just a bit more experience. It doesn't mean that it's still not nerve-wracking. It's still when we were opening Anise, I was still as nervous as opening Siddharth. Just because you don't know how people are going to perceive it. But what over the years, what's changed is my confidence in coming up with dish ideas or experience what we want to create as compared to the first time at Siddharth now. And also we have such amazing staff or team members that understand me so well. So you just have to say, okay, this is how I want it. And they're like, yeah, I got you. Or these are the amount of wines I want, or this is the concept of the restaurant, this is the core idea, this is what we want to do. We want it to be formal, or we want it to be smart casual or relaxed. And that's where it becomes, if you have the people in the same wavelength as you, it's a lot easier. So I think that's what's changed.
Is there a certain thing you look for when looking for people to work with? Is there a quality you look for?
Attitude is the biggest thing, I guess. If they have the right attitude and the passion to progress in their life and their profession, And that's the two key things. They've got to be hardworking, and they've got to really love life. If they don't have that high energy, then kind of it doesn't go too far. And they've got to be positive people. If then if someone's going to complain all the time, they're not going to last anywhere. In whether it's it's just you just got to try and stay as positive as possible.
As we kind of are wrapping up here, there's one kind of, I guess, element that I would want to dive in before we finish up, and is that idea of trying new things and pulling inspiration from places. So that's something I would love to hear from you, Sid, is where you kind of seek out inspiration, especially kind of outside the world of food.
My biggest form of inspiration is obviously my team, because without your team, you cannot achieve anything. If they're not in the same vision as you, you can't. So if they're not creative people, you can't do everything. You just can only create small amounts of things in a time. So that's one. Second is traveling makes such a difference. So the more you travel, see different parts of the world, different cultures, it just kind of opens your mind up to see something new and taste all these different flavors. Because I love all different kinds of cuisine and things. And obviously restaurants around the world make a big difference as well. Like, you look at restaurants anywhere in the world, Japan or Denmark or US, and everyone's got a very different style. And so important to see every style, but then don't copy them. You got to do it on your own way. Every place has to have their own kind of signature style. So I'm constantly looking at restaurants, menus, kind of techniques, but at the same time, it should just showcase your style in a restaurant.
Is there any kind of, I guess, risk of slipping into kind of comparison culture where that kind of gets a little bit sour, where you're looking at these other peers of yours doing amazing things and you go, oh, I wish I was doing that. I wish I was doing that. I wish I was doing that. How do you kind of, does that feeling even come into you, or are you actively kind of countering that?
Well, I think one thing I always say to all the team leaders is that do not compare yourself to other restaurants. Look up to people. Look up to anywhere in the world. Look up to people in the country or the city. No problem. Do not say, oh, this person's copying me, or I wish I could do this better. You just need to find your own style that makes you comfortable, and you can still keep pushing yourself to do better and better in terms of whether it's your technique or your perfectionism and everything. Yeah. But it's really important to say, this is my style. I'm going to keep working on my style, and that's it.
Yeah, amazing. Love that. Fantastic. Well, I guess last thing to kind of finish this off is, would you have any kind of final bits of advice for, I guess, that going back right back to the start, that kind of scenario A, scenario B, any advice for someone stuck in that kind of reactive scenario A and wanting to move more into that kind of like proactive, iterative, experimentative kind of scenario B? Any final words of advice for creatives wanting to get there?
I guess same thing. We shouldn't really think too much about what people think about us. Not everyone's gonna like what we do or anyone does. We just gotta stay true to our own kind of selves. And if we keep worrying, and some part of it is me, and that's what I've changed myself as well. That I used to worry too much about what people thought about me, and slowly I've been like, okay, I just need to focus on what's our restaurant role, like what we want to deliver as an experience in all our restaurants. If some chef or some hospitality person or some diner doesn't like it, it's okay. We can't please everyone. There's going to be someone so just focus on keeping your teams happy and working with them and enjoying them, and also finding that work-life balance, that you're not just always stuck in a restaurant in the front of house or kitchen. Get out there, do some exercise, look after yourself, and have time with the family or partners or whatever. That's so important. Most important, I guess.
Yeah, balance.
Yeah. Balance is the key.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, Sid, I think that's a great place to kind of leave us there. And I just want to say Thank you so much for your time and sharing your knowledge. It's fantastic to just...
It's an absolute pleasure. I look forward to hearing it.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, everyone. Well, that's
Thank you so much, Ben.
Yeah, fantastic. Awesome. Right, that's going to do us, everyone. And we will see you all in the next one. Bye.